こんばんは皆さん。元気でしょうか？さあ、現在の気分はどう？ How are you feeling today? Good evening, everyone. 本日、重要な日本の文法の常時を説明させていたします。まあ、今日のレッスンは文法のは常時、それからもの常時、それからがの常時。私は皆さんに説明させていたします。Everyone, in our previous lesson, we have discussed the remember I have discussed to you the very first lesson, the basic, the conjugation the conjugation janai, the conjugation datta, which is the past tense of the, and the conjugation janakata for the or past tense for the negative past tense for the simple form of sentence. Today, in the interest of time, we will be discussing the introduction to particles. In Nihongo Bunpo, or in Japanese language grammar construction, joji particles like the or joji or particles or articles in the English language are like linking verbs or are like prepositions in English. There are a number of particles in Nihongo Bunpo or Nihongo grammar, but I would like for us to discuss first the very basic and yet the one of the most crucial particles, if I may say so. Especially, I know you've been seeing some debates with regard to the ha and the ga. So let's discuss that. So first we go to the first three of the particles, the ha, the mo, and the ga. We want to know to make good use of what we have learned in the last lesson by associating a noun into another noun. Remember in the last lesson, if you're familiar with the English grammar, SLVC or the subject linking verb complement. Let me give you an example. SLVC or subject linking verb complement. Let's say this toy entertains, or this console entertains. Kono console wa tanushimi desu. So you see the linking verb. The only difference in Japanese grammar is that the linking verb des, in that case, des or the da linking verb comes at the end. Say, let me give another example. Anata no terebi wa sugoi desu. Anata no terebi wa sugoi desu. Anata no atarashii terebi wa sugoi desu. You see in the last example I've given, I have placed the linking verb at the last part, and the subject is watashi no terebi, or my TV, or new TV. Arata na terebi, or new TV. Tanushimi is entertaining. Tanushimi desu. So you have noticed in the previous lesson, we're trying to link the previous lesson with this lesson. The wa in the first lesson, or lesson 006, the wa, when we try to correlate with the subject linking verb complement pattern, or the most simplest pattern in Japanese language, the SLBC. The wa is a very, although if you write it in hiragana, you should be writing it as ha. But take note, if you are to pronounce it, you have to pronounce it as wa. If again you pronounce it as wa, but if you're going to write it, you write it as ha. Okay, so that's the ha. Now, what is this ha particle? This ha particle, as I have mentioned a while ago, goes with the SLVC sentence pattern, or just like in lesson 005. In lesson 005, the most simplest of the simplest of all the Japanese language grammar pattern. Wa is a very important particle, and I may call it a subject particle. Other books call it a subject particle, but for me, in my experience, it's not just a subject particle, but it is a descriptive clause or descriptive sentence description particle. Because if you will construct a sentence describing a thing or describing a subject or describing a subject matter or wadai subject matter, you will find it that the wa is a very essential particle when you are to form a descriptive type of sentence or a descriptive type of clause. You can see that you can see it very evident in our previous lesson. So again, what is again the wa? The wa is a very essential particle. It's in many books it is described as the subject particle because it goes after the subject. It is written right after the subject, and it right after the wa or the ha, when you write it right after the wa, on the right part, on the right hand side part, you place your description. Or in English language, it is what we call the letter C in the SLBC. Okay, so let's take some vocabulary. First, the usual vocabulary. Pardon the kanji. I want you to be accustomed to. I want you to be accustomed to kanji. Okay, let's memorize some vocabulary here. Gakse, un. There's a casual in Japanese. There are many ways to say yes, not just hi, but in casual form of talking, another form of yes is un. Take note of how I pronounce it. It's un. It's not a prolonged un. It's un. That's also a yes, but in casual form, very very casual form. I do not suggest using the un in formal way of speaking. There are other ways to confirm yes. It could be hi, or it could be sayo or sayo de gozaimasu. And then ashita, number 3, ashita. Un, take note of the prolonged un. It's un. It's a very casual way of saying no, but the more formal way of saying no is iye, and the less formal way of saying no is iya or iya. But the formal way is iye, and the very 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 casual way of saying no is un, prolonged un. And then kyo, honjitsu, kyo, both refers to today. And then shiken is almost silent I in shi. Shiken is exam. So you see, even in this reference, we call it as the topic particle, the wa. But later, as you go along on learning Japanese language, you will realize that the wa is not just an ordinary subject particle, but oftentimes it is what I call a descriptive particle, because the wa is a very essential article or particle in forming descriptive clauses and descriptive sentences. Again, what is this descriptive sentences? When it comes to English language, it's the SLVC. If you remember the SLVC in English language, subject linking verb complement, it's one of the very essential English grammar sentence pattern that you can correlate in your learning of Japanese. So remember that. especially in this basic sentence construction. Okay, please screenshot this part. So let's take for example this kind of sentence. Bob and Alice. Bob to Aris. Bob son to Aris son. So let's see their conversation. Bob says, Aris wagak say. Aris wagak say. Notice that I have raised my intonation on the last syllable, denoting that I'm trying to convey an interrogative sentence. Aris wagak say, is Alice a student? And then Alice, remember in Japanese you don't have letter L, but rather the letter L is transformed into R. So Alice or Aris will reply, gakusei, gakusei, meaning yes, I am. You know, in Japanese, this is very important. In Japanese, they are very keen to reticence, meaning you have to use common sense in common sense in a way that you should not be repeating or not anymore be mentioning the subject or not anymore be mentioning the name of your conversant. So in Japanese, since they are reticence is a very important virtue to them, sometimes the subject or the conversant of the sentence is known by context or by common sense. So in this case, take note of the question, Aris wagak say, and then Aris replied, gakusei. Gakusei, meaning yes, student. So it's very casual. You may notice that Alice didn't even put the declarative da, and she didn't even mention the name of her conversant. So this just show the reticence manifested in many of the Japanese sentences. So please take note of that. Not only that they want to do away with redundancy, but Japanese also want to eliminate unnecessary mentioning of the subject, and doesn't want to make any redundant indications of the conversant or the second person. Okay, let's take another example. Again, it's Bob and Aris. John wa ashita, meaning is John coming tomorrow? Probably they have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. John wa ashita, is John going for tomorrow? And then Alice will reply, ashita janai. Probably next week. Meaning ashita janai. You mean ashita janai, or not tomorrow. Remember, the janai means it's the negative form of the declarative da. So ashita janai. So she just negated the question. So John wa ashita, and then Aris replied meaning the very casual form of no, ashita janai. So probably after 3 days, ato mikka, or probably next week, raishu. Osoraku raishu, probably next week, raishu. Since we have no context, we don't have enough information, but there is some danger in overdoing the reticence. Sometimes if you omit too much of the elements of a sentence, your sentence will almost look like lacking context, just like this one. since we have no context, we don't have enough information to make any sense at this composition. It seriously makes no sense for Jan to actually be tomorrow. See, just like this. Please screenshot this explanation. So again, we learned by example. So for the third time, example again, Bob and Alice. Alice wa hanashimasu. So Alice is talking. Ashita wa shiken da. Ashita wa shiken da. Sorry. Alice says, kyou wa shiken da. So today is the scheduled day for the exam. Kyou wa shiken da. Notice when I say shiken, the letter I is almost silent. Kyou wa shiken da, meaning for today we have an scheduled exam. And then Bob says, but how about Jan? Jan wa, in Japanese, when you form a kind of this interrogative sentence, Jan wa, there are two possible connotations. Either you're trying to ask where is Jan, or you're trying to ask, but how about Jan? But how about Jan? The whereabouts of Jan, or the location of Jan? Okay, or how about nani ga? How about Jan? Jan wa? And Alice said, Jan wa ashita. Jan will probably come tomorrow. Jan wa ashita. As for Jan, the exam is tomorrow. Jan wa ashita. The last example shows how generic the topic of a sentence is. A topic can be referring to any action or object from anywhere when including other sentences. For example, in the last sentence from the previous example, even though the sentence is about when the exam is for Jan, the word exam doesn't appear anywhere in the sentence. We'll see some more specific particle that lies more closely in the sentence at the end of the lesson. Remember, I have mentioned a while ago, the wa is a subject particle. It goes with the subject, it goes right after the subject, it describes the subject. It is a descriptive particle, it forms a descriptive type of sentence, it forms a descriptive type of a clause. So that's the function of wa. Before we go to the identifier particle, I want you to first learn about the mo particle. The mo particle is almost like a wa, but in English you could regard this as the to. So in many books, the mo is regarded or identified as the inclusive particle, meaning please include first this subject 2, subject 3, subject 4, so person B, person C, person D, person E. So it's an inclusive particle. So you want to connote that the listener that also please include in that kind of description these other subjects or these other persons or these other things or these other wadai, these other topics. Mo, that's the function of mo. Okay, so we can see in the example, Bob says, Alice wagaksei, meaning is Alice a student? Alice wagaksei, and then Alice says, tomo gaksei. So you see, Alice also want to say to her conversant that please also include Tom as a gaksei or as a student in that kind of descriptive clause or predicate, being a student. So we go back to the above mentioned sentence. Alice wa gaksei. So probably he just want to, it's just an affirmative question, Alice wa gaksei, but he probably knows and just want an affirmative confirmation that Alice is a student. Alice wa gaksei. And then Alice replied, tomo gaksei. Tomo gaksei, meaning Tom please include also to being student Tom. Tom is also a gakusei, or is also a student. Tom mo gakusei. Let me cite another example. Hero is a you. Hero is a you. It's a Superman wa eiyu nan desu. Superman is a hero. Superman wa eiyu nan desu. And also I want to include in the list of heroes Batman. Batman is also a hero. So I will say Batman mo eiyu nan desu. Batman mo eiyu nan desu. So the two sentences are almost similar, but the only difference in the second sentence I have said is that instead of using the wa, I have used the particle mo, meaning please also include in your list of known heroes Batman other than Superman. So that's the function of mo particle. That's why many books call it as the inclusion or inclusive particle. Inclusion particle. Okay, please screenshot also this sentence. Bob asked a question. Alice wa gakusei. Let's say he doesn't have his he doesn't know if Aris is a student, and then Aris replied, remember the prolonged which is a very very casual form of no. Tomo gakusei janai. So if I will translate that in English, Tomo gakusei janai. Tom is also not a student, so please include also Tom in the list of your not student. Tomo gakusei janai. So this is the tricky part among the three particles we are discussing for today. Remember, for today our topic is wa, the mo, and the ga. And among the three, this is the trickiest among the three, the ga. Many of the Southeast Asians, including Filipinos, Vietnamese, Thailand people, and some Cambodians, many of the Southeast Asian people have this kind of consonant, the nga, ng, nga, ng. You can see that the ga is written as ga. Remember, the wa is written as ha, but you pronounce it as wa. This ga, please don't pronounce it directly as ga. I want you to pronounce it the Japanese way. The Japanese way of correctly pronouncing it is you have to mix the ga and the nga. So how do you do that? Tom nga, nani nga yoda, nani nga yoda, what do you want, nani nga yoda. In that sentence, nani nga yoda, what do you want, or say what do you want from me. If you notice the ga I intentionally mix it with nga because that's the correct pronunciation for ga. But if you will write it or type it, it's ga. So again, nani nga yoda, or dari nga todokeru no, or so this ga, what does it do? In many books, the ga is called the identifier particle. Remember, you might get confused. Many of the Japanese learners get confused with this difference between the wa and the ga. It's almost the same, but I would say, remember, the wa is intended for the SLVC sentence pattern in English. It's intended for descriptive sentences. It's intended for simple sentences describing a subject. But the ga is an identifier particle because it identifies the doer of the action. It identifies who is the receiver of the action. It identifies what is the person, or who is the person, what is the subject, or what is that thing that an intransitive verb works for. So that's the part. That's the function of ga. It is an identifier particle. So meaning it should answer the question for who, or who did that, for who or who did that. That's the ga. Or what happened to that thing? What happened to that thing? For what thing you're referring to? So the ga or the identifier particle should be able to answer for that. Okay, I want you to screenshot this explanation. So a while ago we have discussed the wa, but the ga also describes. The ga also describes, but it doesn't just describe, it identifies. More than just describing, it identifies. So as I have said, it should answer the question, who is the doer of the action, or to what subject is the intransitive verb referring to, or who will be the recipient of the action, or who will be the recipient of that such changes. So the ga should be able to answer it. It may look like a descriptive particle, but the ga, I'm telling you, the ga is almost always or oftentimes regarded as the identifier particle. So let me give an example. Watashi ga kanji wo kakimasu. Watashi ga kanji wo kakimasu. Watashi ga kanji wo kakimasu. Again, watashi ga kanji wo kakimasu. Watashi ga meaning who is the doer of the action? I am the doer of the action. Watashi, I am the doer of the action. Watashi ga kanji wo kakimasu. I use the particle wo or o. Kanji wo kakimasu. So the indirect object, or what did I write? Kanji. Kakimasu is right. Kakimasu. So or let's say another example. Watashi ga katsudon wo kaimasu. Watashi ga katsudon wo kaimasu. I'm going to buy a katsudon. Watashi ga katsudon wo kaimasu. So you notice after the watashi, after the I, pronoun I use the ga to tell you that I am the doer of the action. I am the one that will buy the katsudon. Watashi ga katsudon wo kaimasu. Kaimasu is cow. Kai is the transitive verb. And so in this kind of sentence, you can see that the ga, watashi ga, you can see the ga identifies me as the doer of the action. Okay, please screenshot this explanatory note for the ga. Many students I've been noticing that many Japanese learners many of them are confused with the wa and ga even up to now. But please, there's a fine distinction line between the wa and the ga. You might get confused. So the wa is so let's put it this way: the wa is strictly used for descriptive clauses, for describing a subject, for forming descriptive sentences, and for using the SLVC. You remember the SLVC English grammar pattern? So the wa is almost always used in that kind of pattern. But the ga, as I've said, identifier particle, it identifies the doer. It identifies the doer of the subject, or the receiver, or identifying the subject for the intransitive verb. Later on, I will be discussing to you the two kinds of verbs in Japanese. In Japanese, there are two kinds of verb: transitive verb, intransitive verb. Just like what I said a while ago, kakimasu katsudon wo kakimasu. Kakimasu. Sorry, katsudon wo kaimasu. Katsudon wo kaimasu. Kaimasu. It's a transitive verb. Usually the transitive verb comes with the wo. Watashi ga katsudon wo kaimasu. Kaimasu is a transitive verb, and the wo, usually the wo comes with the intransitive verb, but there are a few exceptions that sometimes the wo is also comes with the intransitive verb. So there are only a few of them, but oftentimes the particle wo comes with the transitive verb, like the kaimasu, and okay. So what I have said, watashi ga katsudon wo kaimasu, it's almost like in English sentence, English sentence pattern. Do you remember the STVDO sentence? Subject, transitive verb, direct object. So direct object is me. Direct object is the katsudon, and the transitive verb is the buy or kaimasu. The dictionary form or simplest form is cow, and I say informal form kaimasu. So that's the transitive verb, and ga is the identifier telling to you that the doer of the action is me, watashi, me. Okay, so please practice it on these differences of wa and ga, because sometimes in advanced lessons later on I will be telling you that there's also another function for ga. It's also a kind of particle that produces two kinds of separate clauses, or a contradiction. It is used for two sentences when you narrate contradiction, or you narrate comparison, or you narrate rationalization or justification. When you want to justify, when you want to rationalize, and you want to compare, usually it is placed, it comes with the desu nga, meaning even though desu nga, you're forming two kinds of clauses, usually contradiction or rationalization, and comparison. So that's the advanced lesson I want to. Later on we will be dealing with that advanced lesson. With that advanced lesson we will be dealing on that, the nga. So in the interest of time, it's getting late. It's getting late, so in the interest of time, let's just pause for now. Kyo kokomade desu. Kyo kokomade desu, minasama. So you see, there are also other examples here, and the author of this book even has this third paragraph explanatory note. So please, I want you to screenshot this third explanatory note, and and also please do not neglect these examples. Sometimes the example is a more effective tool than the explanatory notes. So I want to impart to you that please don't neglect these examples, because there are many students that learn from numerous examples rather than by reading lots of explanatory notes. So for now, for today, as part of our lesson 008, the bunpo, Nihongo grammar, bunpo. So what again? Recap. We want to recap again. What are the three particles we have discussed today? The three particles is the wa, which is a descriptive particle or subject particle. In other books they call it as subject particle. Yeah, indeed, it describes a subject, so it's a subject particle, the wa. Or when you write it ha, the mo particle, which is an inclusion type of particle, it functions like a wa. The mo particle is an inclusion particle, it functions like a wa, but it just want the conversant or the listener to understand that other than the first mentioned subject, there are also other candidates for that particular, the same predicate. the same description. And the ga, which is the trickiest among the three, the ga or nga, the ga is an identifier particle. So in advanced lessons, we will learn that the rationalization and comparison and the contradiction uses of the nga, like in desu nga, take note of the intonation, desu nga, and then most likely it is followed by a comma, desu nga, but in English it is but desu nga. So for now, I would like to pause for that. Please recollect again our lesson for today. That's lesson 008, the three most basic particles. And what again, particles when it comes to English language is almost like the articles and the prepositions. And there are other particles in Japanese like the ni, the de. So we will deal with that later on. And there are some combination particles like nimo, demo. So you see there are also other particles and combination particles. Later on in intermediate lessons, we will be dealing with that in later lessons. Okay, in the mid part of this reference book. Okay, so for today, we just mark that as the last part of our lesson for today, lesson 008. So 今日ここまでです。ご視聴くださりありがとうございました。また皆さん。So thank you for watching until the end. Please don't forget to press the like and please subscribe, and if you could also recommend this channel to your other friends. Please press the like, the subscribe, and click that bell button for you to be notified of my other new videos. I will also remember I have told you, if the lesson number ends with the odd number, it refers to kanji lessons. Yeah, kanji. And if the lesson number ends in an even number, it's grammar, just like this one, lesson 008. So in lesson 007, that's another sequence of two kanji characters. So ご視聴くださりありがとうございました。また皆さん、じゃあね。バイバイ。